attorney has been excused. 4, agenda changes. There are none. 5, consent agenda. A, February 20th, 2025, regular board meeting minutes. B, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, I would need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard.
Dalton Davis, 1550 9th Street. 9th Street.
Hi, my name is Dalton Davis. I really don't have anything to speak on. I just want to come and introduce myself. I'm running for the candidate for the board, so I just came to introduce myself and put it out there. Small bit about background. I just spent 5 years in the Marine Corps, graduated from Hortonville, so I've been around the community for quite a while. So I just want to come and introduce myself.
Thank
That's it.
you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No.
Okay, 7, committee reports. There are none. 8, unfinished business from previous meetings. There is none. 9, new business. A, discussion and possible action on Alonzo Park camera system.
So this came up in the last meeting, and then a couple board members noticed that they didn't have, the lowest bid, TECC, didn't have a recording device or a monitor in their quote. So I went back to them and had forgotten that they were able to utilize our old monitor and DVR that we had left over when we upgraded the camera system at the plant last year. So that's why it wasn't in their quote. They're going to use something that we already have.
How old is that?
Ooh, not sure.
More than 5 years? 10 years?
No, I think like 3 to 5 or something.
Okay. I'm just curious based off of like how long I was going to ask him.
Does anyone have questions on any of the quotes?
Thank you for clarifying that, and I appreciate that.
If not, I would need a motion.
So we're still recommending the TECC one? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the quote from TECC for the amount of $6,553.81 for the Alonzo Park cameras.
I'll second.
Roll call, Jim?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. B, discussion and possible action on Alonzo Park rental fees.
So this is something that Nathan wanted to bring up to the board. With the inclusion of the new splash pad and playground, we wanted to see if the board was interested in raising the fee for renting Alonzo Park. It's currently $92 for residents and $129 for non-residents. Nick, what he was thinking was $150 for resident and $200 for non-resident, but I just wanted to bring it up to the board to see what the board's feeling, some thoughts were on it.
So when we rent this, do you know? So when we rent out the pavilion, is the whole park like private use then?
No,
It's just a pavilion, right?
the area underneath
So if someone wanted to have a birthday party per se, we would not rent it to them and just say other people aren't allowed on a weekend or something?
No, I don't
No.
think that was the plan. I think it's, the splash pad playground would still be available to the public, but they would have the area with all the picnic tables and stuff.
Okay.
So what makes that, my question is what makes it exclusive? So like, let's say, is there something there that's gonna say this is areas reserved? Because I think with the splash pad, what's gonna happen is we're gonna get people that are going in the pavilion, not realizing that maybe it's reserved. So then is it a potentially uncomfortable situation for somebody who's now bringing in their stuff for a birthday party, and there's tables that are occupied?
I mean, there's a pretty simple, cost-effective solution. You just print up some reserved for private event and then laminate them
Something, yeah.
with a little paperweight and enough to cover all the tables. So when they reserve it, just tell them to put them on the tables. And And if they don't, then it's their own, you know, if they wanna share with other people, they probably can then. If
And
they
not-
don't want to,
yeah.
you know, only wanna use half, whatever.
And not to put extra work on staff, but so like, let's say it's reserved on a Saturday, then who's putting those out there, DPW type of thing? I mean, are they, I'm just trying to think, I think that pavilion is gonna be used a lot, considering that's the shady area there, you know?
In the past, the on-call person usually checked everything to make
Yep.
sure, like if it was a Saturday rental, then Sunday it would be cleaned up for a Sunday rental. And so, is that still what the Public Works does?
Yep.
Okay,
So we could have them put up a sign or give them the laminated things when they
Yeah.
rent it.
And they
Just
pick
let
up
them
the
be
keys.
responsible for it.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
turning them in with the keys or something?
Yeah,
Mhm.
either one works for me.
I'm just trying not to make it where it's something that's an extra task.
I guess I was just assuming we just hand it to, when they rent them, and say, here, put these on the table, tables you're gonna use, and if you wanna reserve the whole thing, you know, it's up to you.
I checked Jenner John, they've had residents 200, non-residents 3, the Lions Club north or south, and that's not with, you know, the big buildings or anything, was 200 and 300. And Shawano, who does have a splash pad, was 50 and 75 for non-residents. So what are you suggesting?
I think what Nathan said was 150 for resident and 200 for non-resident.
Did you have was there a suggestion for the nonprofits? Because there's a third category on here.
Yeah, not that I remember.
Okay.
That's not on this chart, is it?
These must be
Alonzo?
existing.
The current one.
Well,
Bottom.
the current one you said is 90?
90,
The
220 total?
92.
Yeah,
The
it's on the
deposit
bottom of
and
that
everything.
page.
We want to put it up to 150.
The suggestion was 150.
Is he meaning the rental cost and then there'd still be the tax and deposit?
Yeah, I think the total
I'm
would come up to
thinking.
150.
Oh, the total would come up to 150.
So it still would be 50 for the deposit and 100 for the rental. Okay,
That's,
and then what did you say for non? 150?
200.
200.
200.
So it'd be 150 and 50.
200 total, okay. What does everyone think?
can't fill up my gas tank for that, so it seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, then we would need a motion, but we still would have to work on the nonprofit? Or do you have a suggestion for that?
Where do those funds go?
Jane, do you know?
Not off the top of my head.
I mean, you know, the
I
same
don't
place
think
we had
they-
our opera rental
I was
funds
gonna
and
say, there's a
everything
rental,
else in the,
there's a
in the
rental
general,
category, I think.
in the general
Yeah.
fund somewhere.
Yeah.
Into the general fund somewhere.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm not
So
sure.
the non-for-profit is roughly 50% of whatever the residence is. I mean, we could do $75,
I think that seems fair to me.
you know,
Mhm.
it's, and I say roughly because it's not exact, but
I'm not sure why the deposit for, I mean, yeah, I'm assuming you get the deposit back, right, if you don't do any damage? So I'm not sure why the deposit for a nonprofit is less, it's the same potential damage.
Yeah.
It's-
It shouldn't be.
If you're getting it back, I don't see a reason why it should be $25. Should be
You
half
should
of that.
just go 50
I
across
think
the
it's
board.
because some non-for-profits don't necessarily have much of a bank, so to
Yeah.
speak. It could be like a smaller group that doesn't have, you know, I don't know, that's just my assumption, is why it would be different.
So 150, 200, and then 75, is that the suggestion?
Is everyone okay with that? We would need a motion then?
I'll make a motion to change the Alonzo Park rental rates to, for resident, non-resident, and nonprofit totals to be 150, 200, and 75. I'm not, if somebody opens up their car door, I'm still gonna hit their car. So I brought it up because I wanted to, just talk about it. I did run it past the fire department. They said that it was workable, it was gonna be tight, but it's workable. I just wanted everybody to, have the opportunity to say, look, I went down there when there's cars parked because it's the exact same layout to drive through New London. And maybe we could consider whether or not we wanted to look at a change, to take away a foot on the sidewalks on each side, or if we wanted to stay with it the way that it is. I know a lot of people in New London and they are complaining. They may not be complaining to their elected officials, but I definitely hear it when I talk to people about how narrow that roadway is, and how they don't like it. So I just wanted to give us the opportunity to maybe take a look at it before construction gets started and say, we have something to physically look at. Is this what we want the downtown corridor to look like? Or is it not what we want it to look like? I don't know if you had any input that you
Sure.
came here for.
Yeah, so let's just back up a little bit, talk about the math here, right? The layout that we have is it's a 40-foot wide street. We've got an 11-foot through lane on each side. Most lanes that you're probably accustomed to tend to be 12. 12 and 11 are used. If you go out like in a township road, a lot of times those are 11-foot lanes. So we've got an 11-foot through lane, and just so you're aware, a legal maximum for a vehicle is 102 inches or 8.5 feet. But the mirrors can extend beyond that. So if you have a fire truck, it's going to take all of the 11 feet probably if you get to the outside of the mirrors. So we got an 11-foot drive lane and a 9-foot parking lane. Of that, just to be clear too, 7 foot is paved, and we're figuring 2 foot for the gutter. Now, the downtown piece is intended to be concrete pavement, so a lot of times when they slip form that pavement, you can't distinguish anymore the curb head and the gutter and the street pavement itself, the parking lane, all that's poured in one pour. So there's no distinction really a lot of times if they slip it and pour it all as one pour. So it's 11-foot through lane and a 9-foot parking lane from from the edge of the curb. If you put your tire right on the curb, you've got 9 feet. Most of your typical cars or even a pickup truck or whatever, probably around 7 feet wide, maybe even a little narrower. You think most of your typical single garage doors are 9 foot wide, and you got that much room for your mirrors unless you're driving a F-350 or something. So is it tight? It's snug. The trade-off you would give is that in exchange for widening the street, you're going to diminish the sidewalk, and the one side, of course, is sidewalk/trail. It does have the effect of calming traffic. They call it traffic calming, I guess is the buzzword they would use. But anytime you tighten up stuff like that, people naturally will slow down. That's a positive, especially for Main Street. And if you're a business owner, that's a fantastic attribute. It's safer, and maybe somebody sees something, maybe they'll say, "Oh, I'm gonna stop in here. I'm going slow anyway. It's not gonna take me much longer if I just make a stop or something." So it's beneficial to the businesses. Beneficial to the pedestrians and other people around there. You're less likely to tear somebody's door off if they do happen to swing open in front of you. If you're going, if it's tight and you're going 20 miles an hour versus if it's wide open and you're going 35 or something. I did last week. We did talk to. We do work with gas station, and, you know, I can't imagine what, it's probably some part of town, but I just can't imagine that it's a very big chunk of geography that they would serve by driving through Main Street.
So to clarify, maybe this is a question for both of you, are you talking between Mill and Nash? So essentially a 2-block
Yeah.
section, okay?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've driven downtown New London, and I even went down there when there was snow. I didn't feel like I was endangering myself driving through there. Our DPW does a phenomenal job at removing the snow. I don't think we're gonna have snowbanks. But we really wanted to give our business owners a little more sidewalk space there too. You know, I just don't know. I think anything that's new feels different. I don't know what your wife drives.
She's got a little SUV. You know, so
Yeah.
it's like a car, you know,
Yeah.
but.
We park down there all the time, so like we'll go down there and we park right on the main drag, and I don't have a problem getting out of my vehicle, and I'm usually, you know, pretty conscious of, you know, making sure when you open your door you're not going to get it. Traffic to me is slower in the downtown New London district.
definitely.
It's nicer. It's easier to cross the street because they don't have as many. I mean, they've got crosswalks, but they don't. I don't know. I don't have a problem with what we have here, and I get it that that feels different, but
We have the 4-way stops, so I think right there you're slowed people down. When there was a stop and go light there, people were gunning it to get through the stop and go light, and some people even got rear-ended in that crosswalk by Otter Creek. So that has totally slowed everything down. So I don't think we need to worry about slowing traffic
No.
down in that area. But I was there, I've been there quite a bit in New London. Today, for instance, okay, there's not much snow, they've got it cleared pretty good. If you park on the curb, which we know no one does, big trucks, regular trucks, not semis, just regular trucks, swerved out over the center line. Every single one that I watched.
To get
I was
out of a
parked in front
parking
of the
stall?
library.
To get out of a parking stall?
No, when they were coming down Main Street, and here's your parking lane,
Yeah.
they all swerved over the center line because there again, you've got mirrors sticking out, it's tight. I feel that street is totally tight. I don't wanna see that. I mean, if we take away a foot on each side, I don't think we're hurting any of the businesses downtown at all.
So what was the width of the driveway here? Remember we had a big discussion about that. And I remember, I was the one who wanted to widen it, just because you had two, whatever. And I remember you saying you didn't have a problem
Yeah,
with
I know.
the width. Would this create a change order? This would create a change order of some sort?
Well, the wouldn't be a change order, but it would involve additional time because we have to redefine that corridor and reset the grade, the elevation of that street in downtown are determined from the storefronts drive the street grade. So it's not much. I mean, it's minor math, but we'd have to redefine the corridor then because if we narrow up the sidewalks, it lifts the street and it changes our profiles and that. So it's rework, it's not an exceptional amount.
What's the width of the sidewalks right now that we're contemplating?
12 and a half, I think it says.
Because
Okay.
New London's are 11 feet. I measured them,
Okay.
because that's what I do. So, yeah, so the sidewalk itself is 7 feet, and then the decorative is 4 feet. So
It's
the
11.
total sidewalk from the business to the curb is 11 feet.
Okay.
So why are we going 12 and a half?
Well, on the one side, remember, this is considered a trail
Mhm.
on the south side.
Were we
So if
doing the
you- if-
trail downtown, or were we doing
No,
it
we're not
behind?
doing the trail in that segment.
I thought we were doing
No,
the
but
trail
we still
behind.
had the
That's
width.
right,
We're
we
doing it
decided to go
behind.
back
We
to
still
the-
had
Yeah.
the additional width.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the additional width, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not arguing that we make a change or don't make a change right now. But what I wanted to do was bring up the awareness, because looking at this is very different than driving down and physically seeing what it looks like. And is that what we wanted to do, or not what we wanted to do, is the point that I wanted to bring up, and have us have the ability to have a discussion about whether or not what we could physically see is, because I can picture what this is. You know, I mean, I could throw a tape measure down, but it doesn't help me. You've done, hundreds of them, but but it's a whole lot different looking at this than it is to drive down the street. That's the same specs.
It's fantastic that New London basically has, other than some variations in the width of the sidewalk and whether it's centered or not, but New London has the exact same geometry in terms of the roadway pavement itself. Theirs is 40-foot wide, yours is shown as 40-foot wide. It's fantastic that you have an example that you can drive to in 7 minutes and feel what you would get. If there's a desire for change, we'll make a change. We're not here to force you to accept something that you're not, wishing to accept. But I just want to make sure that everybody's thought through, because it's all a matter of trade-offs, right? I mean, as you start widening it up, you diminish the sidewalks. And what feel do you want downtown? That's.
And I talked to the mayor today, and he said their goal is to have people out dining or doing whatever, and they're doing 11-foot sidewalks. He said people can still walk down it, they can still take their dog for a walk, they're not gonna be bothering anyone. So I guess I was concerned about squeezing that road, and once it's done for
Sure.
50 years, 75 years. I mean, we're stuck with it.
Mhm.
It's no different than the bump outs. I've heard nothing but complaints about our bump outs from the day we did them until now. People don't like them. And I think that whole idea was to slow people down for the stop and go lights. But it didn't,
I mean,
So-
I like the calming effect that has existed downtown. I think post bypass, I live right there, I have a business right there, I'm watching it every day. It's a palpable difference. You can tell people are enjoying the downtown. It's safer.
I'd
That's
like
true,
to see
that's-
some data. I guess, so you contacted several people in New London.
Yes.
There's
And-
nothing stopping
And
any of us.
then, and in all fairness, it was driven by the fact that I knew there was a question about, fire trucks. Is this gonna be okay for emergency vehicles? We're having a little different conversation now. The fire department is on record clearly saying, we don't have a problem with the road width that we were given in New London.
But if there's a
if
problem
there's-
with people going over the center line, then if it means I have to sit downtown New London or sit at a business downtown and video record and get that data, then I'll do that. I just feel like no one from the municipality has gotten complaints, but people are complaining. So if people are complaining, they either need to go to their elected officials or they need to go to the municipality, they need to take that right path to complain. But I'm not comfortable making a decision on this tonight because we did
Well, we
put
can't.
so
It's-
much
It's
thought.
just discussion.
Yeah, we put so much thought into this. This was not a tiny discussion. We
Right.
And I'm not sure where you
Did
even
you-
look for
so-
data.
You had a conversation with the mayor,
Yeah.
and, did you characterize, all of it was it just about the fact that, 11-foot sidewalk is working for us, or did he have a concern or comment or
Well,
feel for,
It only got finished
traffic?
last October, so they haven't really experienced a
How it's
spring,
gonna work
summer,
with-
outdoor anything
Okay.
at this time yet.
Okay.
So, he did say, I actually got an email from the Public Works. He had the Public Works, person who you spoke to,
Carson,
Bob.
yeah.
And he sent through a bunch of things saying he hasn't gotten any complaints, which I think that's incorrect. Maybe he hasn't, but people out there have had complaints. And that's why I thought, okay, I'm going to actually go down there, I'm gonna measure everything, I'm gonna just see and just watch the traffic and see what we got going on. And he agreed with me that because we have the four-way stops a block apart, we're probably fine. People aren't speeding right now through that main street right now, just
Well,
because of
don't-
that.
Don't mess it up either.
We're not.
We're
We're
trying
not
to
taking
design,
away, we're not
design
taking away
things,
the stop and go
design
lights,
things
or the
better.
four-way stops.
You can design things that influence people with good design, and it would be beneficial to storefront owners. If this talk about having seating out front and
11-foot is what New London has, and they're
I'm just
fine.
saying.
And so
that's-
does Wapaka, they designed it like Wapaka. They
It's-
I
said,
wasn't aware of the.
How long is the
Wapaka.
downtown? It's a pretty small downtown. It's like, how fast do we need to go for one block?
you're not gonna, because you have a two four-way stops.
Exactly, so let the chunk of road in between
So
those
it is
four-way
slowed down.
stops, let the chunk of road in between those four-way stops complement everything else that's going on. It's a quiet, it's
They
a
still
literally
will.
quiet downtown.
It'll still be a complement at 11 feet versus 12 and a half. And make it easier for people to park,
But
to
could
go
be-
to your
that could be an
business.
opinion. I
You know,
mean, maybe we should all go to New London
So I have a
you
question
should,
and check it out.
for
you
the chief.
definitely should.
To redirect, I have I have a question for the chief. You were downtown, you just told me, I didn't see you down there, but you were down there today.
Yeah.
What seems to be we were just talking about what some of the problems that we're having right now, like the crossing guard and stuff. Would that width make a difference to a crossing guard? Or I'm not even sure that intersection, the width of that intersection, so we're looking at this, and we're talking 2 feet, it is 2 feet, whatever, but the problems that they're encountering down there,
Well, the biggest problem we're having is the rolling stops at the four-way. So, I mean, we're trying to address that. I don't know, I guess. That's a difficult question to say whether the widths would, I mean, obviously we got more crosswalk then on one direction, but I think the biggest issue is just us getting it out and enforcing this four-way stop, those rolling stops.
but if the design is to slow that traffic down in any way that we could slow it down, could potentially help with safety, with it, not just at that intersection, but at other intersections where people are crossing it.
Well,
Pine and
yeah, of
Mill
course. I
and-
mean, I think we want it as slow as possible through there. But I will say that the two four-way stops have helped dramatically to the point that was made earlier. We used to have a lot of rear-end crashes right in front of the lanes there.
Yes.
And we haven't seen those, obviously, because you've got four-way stop there. So, I don't know, it's hard to predict what those things will do. I can tell you, I was in London, and, it's always so dependent on people being parked there, but it does feel tight, but again, I don't know. I don't have that's a hard one for me to.
Yeah, and now,
You
and
know-
looking back in New London, I mean, the times I've been there, I was there also when there were snowbanks, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And it felt tight.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking, well, it's tight because there's snowbanks on the curbs.
Yes.
But then other times we've gone and we'll sit somewhere. I see a lot slower traffic, and that's what I like.
Something that the mayor said too makes a lot of sense. He said, instead of having your constant flashing crosswalk, he said you have your push button. He said that way, he said after a while, people ignore that flashing, and they do. I mean, you
Right.
could get killed walking across Main Street sometimes because people don't care. But if you push that button, all of a sudden it's gonna be like, whoa,
Right.
there's somebody crossing, I gotta stop. So he said that really is effective, that they have the push button one. And he said, I totally suggest that to you. And he said, have it like in the middle so that you have this, and ours is kind of in the middle, where it is now. But I mean, you can always move it. We're redoing everything. So I
Dreamville's had
mean,
problems with theirs
you
at
know.
Parkview. At Parkview, there's on 76, they have one of those push button ones by the old fire, between the old and the new fire station in that area. That's a push button one, people just go right through it. And it's obvious, it's flashing, but people just,
but it's, there again, that's not a downtown.
it isn't.
And people aren't going slow. So I think in our case, it's the downtown, people are gonna all of a sudden see that flashing and say, whoa, I gotta stop for a pedestrian. So that is something we definitely should look at. They suggested.
I I think that the design should be pedestrian oriented. I think that, broadly speaking, there's a lot of design and, we have so much space in this area. We like to design things for cars and not people, and I'm in the camp of let's make it pedestrian centric, and so that it's natural for people to want to come down there, not build everything and accommodate everything for trucks and how fast trucks are going. It's a vehicle, it's not a person.
But your truck is coming downtown to park and use your business. That's why the truck was downtown today, when I was watching traffic.
And they parked and they use the business.
I think we all need more time to take a look at this, and
Mhm.
maybe the
Mhm.
suggestion to go to New London.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
that was the whole reason, was
I'll
that
go
we
down
can go look and physically see and then say, is that what do we like this or do we not like that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was the whole, that's why it's discussion only, and I just wanted to bring it up because
Sure.
we
No,
have
this
an example
this
7
is-
miles away that we can look at and
This
say.
is very valuable because.
And it's important.
We don't wanna, a lot of this is driven by how narrow can we make the road and still have it be functional in order to maximize the sidewalk area,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, there's no absolute there. Could you make it a foot narrower or 2 foot narrower? Yeah, you probably could. You'd narrow up the parking spaces even tighter. We're at that hairy limit though now with the 40 feet. Could you widen it? Absolutely, but it's at the detriment of the sidewalk in front of the storefronts. And that, I think we're very close to over the target here, in terms of that happy medium. And if somebody wants to move it, make it 2 foot wider, I doubt anybody's gonna wanna make it narrower. Or 3 feet, if you wanna make it wider, absolutely, now is the time to have that discussion. But, again, you have to remember where, the genesis of this was driven by how narrow can we go in order to maximize the walks in front of the storefronts, right? So, yeah, I would invite everybody to spend some time down in New London and see what you feel about it, and then we can reconvene this, in another
Yeah, we'll bring it back.
meeting.
When
Would
do we
it-
need, I'm sorry, please.
Would it influence like the lighting that we picked out?
Probably not, no. It wouldn't be significant enough. Now, if you're talking like, we're gonna widen it 4 foot, potentially, but even that, the lighting is based to get uniformity across that whole, from front of building to front of building, so variations in the width of the street probably aren't gonna have that dramatic of an effect. At some point, based on the arms that you chose and everything else, if we start crowding and making those sidewalks narrower and narrower, it's just physically imposing in a small space. So at some point, maybe you have to forego, some of the decorative cross arms or something if you got too narrow. But I don't get the sense that you're going there. I think we're talking 40 or 42. I think that's what this is feeling like.
Right,
I don't
it's
know if
not a
this is-
lot.
Right. A question for you or for Aaron, timeline, when is the drop dead date on this?
Well, I think if we wanna this was a cross-section that we already approved, so the engineers are moving forward. So if we wanna make a change to that now, we should do it hopefully at the next meeting if we can, just so we can let them know so that they're not having to redo stuff at a later date. The sooner we can let them know about a change, the better.
And that gives everybody 2 weeks to, if they wanna go see, they can see it.
Sure.
And, that's probably plenty of time, so.
Yep.
We'll just bring it back then next week, or in 2
Yeah.
weeks.
And it'd probably pay to, and I don't live right here any longer, so I don't have contacts, or I don't know people that live in New London, I don't know people that have a business there or frequent that street, but there's the gem, right? I mean, if you can talk to somebody that has a business on the street. No, unfortunately, they didn't get to experience the summer yet where they could put out tables and chairs and that, the 11 foot is not going to feel luxurious if you start popping some tables and that out there. I can guarantee that's gonna get tight in a hurry. But yeah, by all means, talk to, if you can find somebody that owns a business or somebody that frequents a business, or, just the general public using the street, if they're concerned about that, I can picture exactly what you're saying. Anybody driving in a commercial truck, doesn't have great visibility out the passenger side, and they don't know for sure if somebody's gonna swing a door open, so they're gonna, if there's nobody oncoming, they're gonna be on center line, or maybe even over, because they, they can see they're not hitting a pedestrian, they can see there's not an oncoming car. That's the path of least resistance versus having to worry about somebody swinging a door open in front of their truck bumper. So I do the same thing if I was driving a big truck. I'd crowd over and if police weren't there, I'd probably go over center line possibly. If a car was oncoming, they would behave completely differently. They'd crowded the line, but I doubt they would have wove over it. But that's just human instincts. They're not
Yeah,
gonna
it's just
endanger
interesting to see. I mean,
Right.
I watched it for a while, and I mean, if you park by the library, Water Street Vintage, the Mexican restaurant, all in that area, it's really busy, and that's kind of where I was. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it just seems really kind of tight.
Mhm.
And like you said, if everybody parked on that curb, tight on that curb, you'd be fine, but we all know that people don't park right on the curb, so I just don't wanna hinder people that are stopping to use the businesses to not be able to find a parking spot or feel comfortable parking, so.
I have one more thing. Dan is here. You did county stuff for years, that was your thing. And I don't wanna end the discussion without saying, do you have anything to share or anything to?
At this time, I mean, it's gonna be up to the board what they want here. He's exactly right, every town road is 11-foot lanes over here. I can't see, what is that width that you have from the center line there before the 2-foot curb?
18.
18?
It was 18 too.
Yeah.
It's a 40 foot total, 20 feet, so 11 and 9.
Of 9. So, and that's not including the pan of the curb,
No, 9 includes the curb.
the curb pants, so which is difficult to,
And then the mayor said, well, is our road wider? He thought New London's was narrower, as far as the businesses being closer than, and he thought maybe our road was wider.
You mean the right of way to the outside, to the building faces?
Yeah,
Um,
so, I don't know, I didn't measure ours.
Well, they'd have to be a foot, they'd have to be 2 foot different because they have the 11-foot lanes like us, and then they'll have 11-foot sidewalk. And we're gonna have the 11-foot lanes and a 12.5-foot sidewalk. There's gotta be 3 feet difference because we got a 1.5 foot more sidewalk in our plans and the same road design that they have.
41,
So-
51, 61, 62, yeah, the math doesn't make sense, because typically they're within 60 feet or 66 feet. I know their road is 40 feet wide face to face, 41 back to back, plus 22 is 63, and that number doesn't make any sense. 63 doesn't feel right, so I don't have those plans, I didn't do the project, so I'm not sure if they're tighter or not, but,
That would be interesting to know too, because if they truly are narrower than ours
yeah.
from building to building, well, it's,
My suspicion would be they would be 66 also, just because it was traditional. It's 4 rods. It was a traditional, street width back in the day. So I would suspect they'd have been the same, but I'm not sure where the 3 feet disappeared between the two. I can check that, and I can forward an email that can get forwarded to the board before you go.
That would be helpful.
Go around,
Yeah.
so we know.
That would be really
Just so we know if our face to face on the buildings is identical to theirs or not.
Yeah,
Because if we've got, if we got 3 extra feet compared to them, well, then. if you want to
Then
put
we'd be
2
fine.
if you want
Well,
to put 2
and
in the road, go
keep in
ahead.
mind too, we have some businesses that are not necessarily, that the building is, remember we have some
There's
where there's
steps, there's
steps.
encroachments that,
Yeah,
probably shouldn't have been there, but they are, or they're historic and they're gonna stay. But yeah, there are encroachments into that,
okay.
that 66 for sure.
I'm concerned about the bike path too. I don't know if that needs to be factored in at all. Just wanna put it on your radar, cause I know that it was not going to go downtown.
No.
No, it's going back.
Yeah, I misspoke, I was
Right.
thinking historically, that was one of the factors that was pushing us to try and
Yeah,
maximize the sidewalk area and minimize the road, is that, that gets even tighter yet than if you've got a bike lane, and that, I apologize for blurting that out with having thought through
Well,
the
that's
fact
okay.
that.
I just, if the bike trail takes a while to happen, then we would naturally have people still biking downtown.
Sure. Well, you may anyways, you may wish that they
Right,
are. I
local.
mean, if they're people that are gonna use, the facilities downtown, whether they're on bike or foot or a car or however they get there is great, right? So,
Plus that Memorial Squares could be redone, and a lot of stuff will physically be changed.
sure. Okay. No, we'll just reconvene in a couple of weeks and if everybody, there is no definitive right or wrong answer. It's a matter of trade-offs where, what do you wanna deplete in exchange for increasing something else? Sidewalk or width of the driveway?
Perfect. We will
Thank you.
bring it back in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
D, discussion on potential wheel tax numbers. Grace?
Thanks. Thanks for letting me bring it up one last time here. I emailed the Wisconsin DOT a while back, and his name's Greg, shared some helpful links of just statistical data of car registrations of every county, et cetera, in the state. So I have some numbers from Hortonville, and in short, if these car and truck registrations are accurate, which I did follow up with Greg saying, I know there's concern that the mailing address in Hortonville could be different. There's the residents that live in Hortonville, but then there's the mailing address discrepancy that can exist, and I did ask him about that, and he couldn't give me any further information. But if these numbers were true, then there's roughly about $100,000 of car registrations each year that are,
Well, they're not true because you don't include cycles and trailers.
I didn't include those.
And then,
I didn't include those.
from what I pulled up, I showed
And just to be clear though,
4,005.
I did not include trailers, and I did
Okay.
not include cycles.
Well,
So please don't,
then
Take
this
my
number
data.
doesn't come out to 93,580. If you do that. So,
I'm just saying, this is.
but I showed, they're saying, the printout I got from the DOT was 4,005
4,500.
vehicles that could possibly, and that could be high, because there again, we could be just taking 54944, which would be, some people do not realize they're not in the village of Hortonville.
So what you're talking, Jeannie, is that in here too?
Mine?
Yeah.
No, I just pulled this up for my own information, but I do have it. These are vehicles, they say that include wheel tax within the county and the CBT for Hortonville. So it came to a total of only 4,005, but there again, like Nathan said in his printout, we don't have an accurate number. I do have, how many households we have, and how many, people, well, I got it from the garbage count and from water and sewer, and from, the people on well and septic. So this count is not even close to what we would have in the village. If you count two vehicles per household, and I understand some have 3, some have 4, some have 1.
I get what you're saying,
So-
but it is possible that this data is true. I followed up with the DOT person, and maybe we could, if Nathan reached out to him and say, hey, I need to know, do these numbers, what do those addresses look like?
They have no way of being able to tell you that at this time.
But they could.
No, they can't, until we would instill this. If we did, then you would know exactly. That is the only way you would know. Because right now, they're including anything with 54944. Because that says we're Hortonville.
Don't you think Hortonia's in
Hortonia, we don't count Hortonia.
But these are all categorized by,
Right,
Hortonia's on here as its own place with
yeah.
1,364. Do you think there's people misregistering their car to Hortonia? I mean, Hortonia.
Possibly, because they're 54944. Do you register your vehicle in Hortonville, or do you register in Appleton where you have a home? Where do you register
I
your
live
vehicle?
above Alley Cat. I register it to Hortonville.
Okay.
I've actually bought 3 cars in about a year, and that's my own thing to enjoy. But that would be $60 that would stay in the village, and I would be. I mean, you have renters you have folks that are renting in the village that wouldn't be sweating. A
Well, all I'm
$20
saying
tax.
is we don't have a correct number, so we can't go by any of that.
That's why I reached out to the DOT, because you told me that
That
last
number
time.
is incorrect.
How do you know that?
Because I'm showing you, I did a printout.
But you didn't give that to anybody.
Well, no, I'm telling you right now. Right here it is.
I got the same data from
Right
him.
there. That is not what you have on your printout. You have 5,556 minus if you're taking out the trailers and cycles. Doesn't come to 4,006, which that number isn't even correct.
Vehicle registrations that include wheel taxes. I mean, I guess I don't understand, because we don't have a wheel tax, so why would Hortonville?
That's telling us the ones that could potentially have a wheel tax, those vehicles.
Yeah, so 4,000 vehicles times $20, that's probably like 80 grand. I'm just here to say that's the pool of money, the potential. I'm not trying to get anyone to vote on anything, I'm just
No, we
presenting
can't
information.
vote on anything. Anyway, it's just discussion.
Exactly,
And
that's why I brought it up.
Nathan did have a good memo that explained what would be a better, way to do this. So, if you read
It's an
Nathan's
avenue.
memo.
Just saying it's an avenue. Moving forward, you know that the potential is sitting there within the community. It would stay in Hortonville. That's actually a really cool thing. You could maybe spend it on Alonzo Park.
You cannot, it's spent for roads only. A
in-
wheel
in-
tax
in
can only
Hortonville.
be spent for roads. So,
And as I've said in the past, that was the two advantages to a wheel tax is that it can only be spent on the roads. And the second advantage is if you have a community that can support that has a big enough pool. Hortonville does not have that density of population. Wheel tax is like the city of Appleton. If you're in the city of Appleton and you have that density of that population, that's where the true revenue comes in. And I have said repeatedly that the biggest advantage to a wheel tax is that can it only be used towards road. And but in Hortonville, we don't have that density of population.
There's a lot of
Right.
vehicles.
Which is why it's been brought up multiple times.
And I just
and
want to
shot
be
down
clear
multiple
that
times,
I'm
yeah.
not, because I've been accused in the past of being a big proponent, but I have said there's perks to it of the fact that it can be used, and that's what I like about it. It can only be used on roads. And the other thing is that it needs to be, it would generate some revenue, but I don't think there's enough revenue that would be supported by the people in this community.
That-
So we made a decision. We could have lowered taxes this past year. We chose not to. Remember this?
Mhm.
We chose to not lower that tax rate. We kept it, or I don't remember exactly.
We reduced it by less, is what we
We
did.
reduced it by less, which then gave, so anybody who's paying taxes in this community, property taxes, was paying an amount that was, I don't want to say equivalent to a wheel tax, because it can be used anywhere.
Yeah. And and doing it, so the last time we had this discussion, we talked about how a wheel tax is a progressive tax. It's not necessarily fair to everybody. Even though it's the same amount for every car, it doesn't necessarily work out to being fair. It ends up being a progressive tax where the more vehicles or the more drivers that you have, the more you pay. And you don't necessarily get more usage out of this. Just because you have more vehicles doesn't mean that you're driving more miles or using the roads anymore, because I have multiple vehicles, but I still drive back and forth to work every day, but I only drive one vehicle. So it's not like I'm driving both vehicles, so I should be paying more for the roads because I have more than one vehicle. I'm still producing the same amount of wear and tear on the roads, whether I drive my Jeep or whether I drive my truck. Or if I had a motorcycle, whether or not I drove my motorcycle, I'm still producing the same amount, or similar anyway, of wear and tear on the roads. But now, because I have more vehicles, I should be taxed more than the person who is still producing the same amount of wear on the roads, but they only have one vehicle. So it becomes a progressive tax, which isn't taxed equally among the residents, and you have unequal taxation with equal usage. So you're much fair, but it's not perfect. You still go based off of equity of, so included into the property tax, because typically the higher the value, the larger the lot, the more frontage you have, and then the more tax you'll typically end up paying. That's not always perfect, but it's a lot closer than one person paying 6 times what somebody else is paying for the same usage.
Any other comments? Okay,
It was clear though that there was a chunk of money that could be gleaned from car registrations. And somewhere around the sum of what I gathered was $100,000. Just put it in the back of your mind moving forward. Things, the funding is unstable.
Any other comments? Okay, we will then move on to number 10. A, clerk treasurer, Jane.
My report was in the packet, and Caitlin Quayman started and is doing great. She trained with the previous DPW clerk for 7 days. And Lauren Cracknell has submitted her WMCA clerk certification. So if she has enough training and experience, we'll all be notified. She'll be certified.
Any questions for Jane? Okay, we will move to B, Director of Public Works.
My report was in the packet.
Any questions for Aaron? Okay, we'll move to C, Police Chief, Brian.
Reports in the packet, and I would just add, I had the truck sale in here. The sale of the truck was $26,750. Nathan and I will probably have additional information on those funds and what the intent is there. I just wanted to say thanks to Public Works. They've really kind of stepped up with some of our squad maintenance stuff and helped us out significantly in the last month, just doing some general maintenance stuff that we were before kind of subbing out, so I appreciate that very much. That's it.
Any questions for Brian? Okay, D, Library Director, Ally is excused. E, Attorney, Ashley is excused. And F, Administrator, Nathan is also excused. G, Building Permit Report is in the packet. And H, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion?
Just to bring up the next meeting, to bring up the downtown roadway with
Okay.
potential for action.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go to 11, Communication and Miscellaneous Business. A, Black Otter Lake District News, Bob.
Nothing new.
Okay, we'll go to B, Hortonville Hortonia Fire District News, Jim.
I attended their training last night, but it was fairly routine and nothing new.
Okay, we'll go to C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report and News. There is none. D, Hortonville Civic Association, Jane.
I have nothing new.
Okay. E, Senior Activities. There is nothing in the packet. And 12, Comments and Suggestions from Citizens Present. Is there anything? Okay, then we will go to 13, Adjournment. I would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 6:57.